Hey everybody, it's me, Angel Benton, and it is time for another edition of Angel Sudsy Recap, where we delve into the world of daytime television and we do a few reality shows on the side. And one of the reality shows that we're doing, now I was torn because the Real Housewives of Auckland is still on and I'm doing them, and Dancing for Relevancy just started this week and I'm not missing a single episode of that. That is like my top priority show. I had to decide because both Jackson, Brittany, and Below Deck are still on the air, but Jackson Brittany is a limited series, so there aren't going to be that many episodes, so I was leaning towards doing a Jackson Brittany recap, but I'm telling you I couldn't. I have to do Below Deck because Below Deck is so good. I think Below Deck might be my absolute favorite non-housewife show on Bravo. I know, it's crazy, right? It's so good though. It's so good. Okay, so this is why I love Below Deck. Because now this might have been something that I just originally associated with Below Deck Med, but now it's gone back to Below Deck. So this is fantastic. So basically, there was drama that exploded on Twitter over the past week. And basically, here's a rundown of the drama on Twitter, because if you don't have Twitter, you're not going to understand, so I'll break it down for you so that you don't have to go searching for these tweets. But basically, what happened was somebody made a comment to Bruno saying, oh, the captain doesn't look very impressed. Now, that's not a dig on anybody, it's just a fact. Captain Lee did not look impressed for the episode 2 weeks ago. And Bruno said his never impressed. Not he's never impressed, his never impressed, but whatever, okay. Right. So, Captain Lee chimes in. Now, normally Captain Lee, I've got to give Captain Lee credit because normally Captain Lee doesn't really get involved into the Twitter fracas, right? Normally he stays out of it. Especially when times that people really try to drag him into it, like when they were asking him about Captain Sandy during Below Deck Med, and he's like, I'm not commenting. I'm not talking about that. So he doesn't want to start any drama with anyone, but I guess someone brought it to him, so he's more than happy to talk about it. And he was like, I'm never impressed with mediocrity. I mean, that's a mic drop moment right there, right? Well, then Chris Brown gets involved, and Chris Brown says, no, Kelly Johnson. So Kelly from the last season of Below Deck gets involved, and he says, it's unfortunate that, no, wait. I'm getting it wrong. Chris Brown gets involved first, and he says, the captain hired us. He saw that I was green on my resume, and it's not our fault that we were so bad, basically. And Kelly Johnson gets on and says, you need to ask for help if you can't get it. You can't just say that, you get it and you're new, because you need to ask for help. And he's like, who was I supposed to ask for help? Oh yeah, that's right, my captain. And Kelly goes, no, you should have asked Nico for help, because Nico was in charge of you and he knows what he's doing. Because Kelly and Nico worked together last season. And he's like, what kind of captain? Oh, and then Captain Lee gets back involved and he says, you know as well as I do that I did not hire you. Now, right there, that actually is, that tells us that the captain does not hire the crew, the production team hires the crew. So all of the criticism that I've had about the show in the past about, I feel like they're staffing the crew with green, horrible people on purpose, and that's very dangerous. It's all legitimate. It is, because Captain Lee is not the one staffing the crew, right? Okay, interesting, right? So then, yeah, so that was pretty much it, because he dropped the mic on that one too. And I was like, oh, wow. So, like I said, the show's great because if you have Twitter, I'm telling you, it will keep going for a week. It is fantastic. All right. Now, let's talk about this week's episode. So this week's episode was a little bit different because Bruno actually kind of stepped up a little bit. So, and the captain noticed and called him out and said, "Good job, Bruno, on taking direction and learning. That's good." So that is really good. They had a bunch of gay guys as charter guests, and I mean they did get really drunk. What a shock! They were very funny. But they spent a lot of time in the galley. Like they were like, they kind of crossed the line between guests. Like they were always going below deck, right? And that's not, I don't think that normally happens, but whatever. There was all kinds of drama between Jen, the mom, and Kate. Although Kate's like, the thing about Kate is it's really dramatic in Jen's head. Like, you know, what's funny is that, you know, Kate makes a joke to the charter guest saying, you know, she's shit at her job, but she's hilarious, right? And Jen is so upset that Kate would say something like that to a guest. She's just so unprofessional. That's what she thinks, right? But like earlier in the episode, she had told the charter guest that Kate was an awful person or something. So why is it okay for you to tell them, but it's not okay for Kate? Okay. And I think she was just a little bit salty because Kate had let her finish up her night service, and she went out and had a date with this Swedish guy who she says looks like Jesus. Now, I don't, you know, he's a little blonder than Jesus. He doesn't quite have the same look as Jesus. He looks more like a hippie dude to me, but you know, they referred to him as Jesus all night, and they had lots of good Jesus jokes. They were talking about how she's like, "I'm going to church after dinner," and Jen's like, "You're going to go to church after you go to church." So, you know, and then they saw each other at the bar, but then, so later that night, they're done. The charter guests go home. Oh, but see, here's the thing. So Captain Lee, his first mate, who isn't really a cast member on the show, so that we wouldn't know, like some of the viewers wouldn't know that there's another person on the show, but there is another person, and he got sick and he had to go to the hospital and they had to take him off the boat. Now, they can't leave the dock unless there is a captain and a first mate. Now, Captain Lee said, "Could I have done it anyways and gotten away with it? Probably, but not with this crew." And that just says it all right there. He's like, so they made up some hokey story to tell the guests. They're like, "Hey, you know, we have a mechanical difficulty. As soon as we get this fixed, we'll be able to leave the dock, but we just can't leave the dock until we get this fixed." Now, the guests think it's a little bit fishy, but the crew pulls out all the stops to make sure that it comes out like they want it. So, for example, they wanted a sushi dinner. Now, this whole charter was not Matt's best moment at all because he hates sushi. He hates making sushi because people train their whole lifetime to make sushi. He had a book on how to make sushi that he was consulting, and Kate's like, "Oh, that's not good that he's reading a cookbook." Okay. So she's like, "Oh, that's different." And then they had also requested a dinner where they do a tequila tasting. So he doesn't know tequila, right? So he asked Chris Brown, he's like, which tequilas would go with which dishes? And he does ask Brie a little bit as well. And they tell him, but everyone is like, "I don't know about the eggplant parmesan, though. I don't know if that's a good mix with tequila. I don't know." So he tells the guests the menu. And then one of the guests is like, he goes down. He's like, "Are you sure that eggplant parmesan is going to go with tequila?" He's like, "I can change it up if you want. You know, I think the tomatoes would go really good with the tequila, but I can do a different dish." And so the guy leaves, and then he's like, "Oh my God, he's totally right. I can't do eggplant parmesan. I gotta do something else." So Brianna's like, "What about paella? Make a paella." So he doesn't do a paella, but he finds some red snapper and he puts it on Spanish rice, so it's like a quasi paella. And they eat it, and it matches perfectly with the tequila. And earlier the night when they had the sushi dinner, they served it off of a almost naked Bruno. So, you know, and Bruno was totally okay with it. And even Chris Brown was like, would I let a gay man eat off of me? Hell yeah, I want to make that money. So, you know, nothing crazy happened. It was just, it was cute. It was good fun. And I got to give props to Kate for coming up with that, because that totally got their mind off the fact that they couldn't leave the dock. Now, the next day they had a new first mate and they could leave, so they'd left. But just that first night, they had to stay on the dock. And they gave them a decent tip. It wasn't like incredible, fabulous, but it was considering that they were upset about and the issues with the kitchen, they did pretty good. They left a decent tip. So then the whole crew goes out that night because they're off the boat. So then the crew goes out that night and Jen just gets shitty. And Kate is pissed. She's like, look, I don't care if you want to drink. That's fine. But I shouldn't have to help you because you're stumbling around, because I'm not a babysitter. This is my night off too, you know? So that's how they kind of left the episode. So we'll see how that goes next week. I'm so excited. Okay. Anyways, thank you all so much for logging on today. I do appreciate it. Please feel free to follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Angel Benton. You can hashtag Below Deck to talk Below Deck, or you can hashtag Days to talk Days of Our Lives. Doing that next. And you can also, what else can you do? Oh, you can hit that subscribe button on my YouTube channel to get my YouTube videos sent to your email inbox every single day. Excuse me. All right, everyone. Have a wonderful day. Peace out. Wubba, wubba, wubba.